Ever wish you had like a cheat sheet to help you navigate the always changing world of diabetes treatment? Well, today we're giving you just that. We're diving deep into Diabetes Drug Notes 2022. It's a guide edited by experts from Glasgow Royal Infirmary. And trust me, you're in for some eye-opening insights. Before we get started, a huge shout out to London Heartbeat Zeet Academy UK for providing this awesome educational material. And hey, if you're loving this deep dive, do us a favor and subscribe to our channels on Facebook and YouTube for more brainy discussions like this one. You won't want to miss out. Now, let's jump right in. This book is designed to be like a go-to resource for healthcare professionals dealing with diabetes. So, everyone from like seasoned specialists to those who just need a more practical approach, it's all about clear, actionable guidance on these anti-diabetic drugs. What I find fascinating is how it acknowledges that not everyone needs to be a pharmacology expert to make informed treatment decisions.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance between the science and the practical application. The book definitely dives into the nitty-gritty of how these drugs work in the body, but it also provides very clear guidance on, how to actually use them effectively in clinical practice.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Chapter 1 dives into the fundamentals of clinical pharmacology, focusing on these anti-diabetic drugs. It starts with the basics of how drugs actually interact with the body. Talking about agonists and antagonists. What's the core difference between these two?
You can imagine a receptor in your body as like a lock, and then a drug as like a key. An agonist acts like a key that, fits perfectly, turning the lock and triggering a specific action. On the other hand, an antagonist is like a key that fits into the lock but doesn't turn it. It blocks other keys, including the body's natural keys, from activating the receptor.
So it's like an antagonist is playing defense, preventing unwanted actions from happening. But why is understanding this lock and key concept so important for diabetes treatment?
Well, you see, many anti-diabetic drugs actually work by targeting specific receptors that are involved in glucose regulation. For example, sulfonylureas, which is a class of drugs we'll talk about later, act as agonists. So they stimulate insulin release from the pancreas. Understanding how these drugs interact with receptors helps us to predict their effects and potential side effects.
It makes a lot of sense. It's like knowing which key fits which lock and what happens when you turn it. Now let's move on to enzymes. These are like the tiny workhorses in our bodies. They're constantly like catalyzing reactions. How do they fit into the diabetes picture?
Well, enzymes play a crucial role in various metabolic processes, including glucose regulation. Some anti-diabetic drugs actually work by manipulating enzyme activity. So, for instance, Metformin, which is a widely used diabetes drug, it works by inhibiting certain enzymes that are involved in glucose production in the liver. So this helps to lower blood sugar levels.
So it's like Metformin is tweaking those enzyme settings to help manage blood sugar. Now let's follow a drug on its journey through the body. It's pharmacokinetics time.
Pharmacokinetics is the study of how a drug is absorbed, distributed, metabolized, and excreted by the body. It's like tracking a package from the moment it's shipped to its final destination. Understanding a drug's pharmacokinetic profile helps us to determine, the best route of administration, the dosage, and potential interactions with other drugs.
So it's like giving each drug its personalized travel itinerary based on its properties and its desired effects.
Yeah.
Now let's go behind the scenes and see how new drugs are actually brought to life, the drug development and trials process.
Yeah, developing a new drug is a long and complex journey. It often takes years, sometimes even decades. It starts with preclinical testing in the lab, followed by a series of clinical trials in humans. Each phase of clinical trials builds on the previous one, gathering more data on the drug's safety and efficacy. And believe it or not, it can cost over £1 billion to bring a new drug to market.
Wow, that's a massive investment of both time and money. It really highlights the importance of rigorous testing and regulatory oversight. And speaking of changes, let's talk Brexit. How has the UK's exit from the EU impacted drug regulation?
Yeah, Brexit has definitely had a significant impact on drug regulation in the UK. Before Brexit, the European Medicines Agency, or EMA, was responsible for regulating drugs in the UK. But now the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, or MHRA, has taken over this role.
So the UK is charting its own course in drug regulation. What are some of the implications of this shift?
Well, the MHRA now has the responsibility of, evaluating and approving drugs for the UK market independently. So this means they have more autonomy, but also, a lot more workload. There are concerns about potential delays in drug approvals, as the MHRA now has to handle a much larger volume of applications. However, there are also opportunities for the UK to potentially streamline its regulatory processes and, maybe foster even more innovation in drug development.
So it's a mixed bag with both challenges and opportunities on the horizon. Another key development in drug regulation is this increased emphasis on cardiovascular outcome trials, or CVOTs. Why have these become kind of mandatory for new diabetes drugs?
Yeah, this shift really stems from a controversial chapter in diabetes history involving a drug called rosiglitazone. Studies raised concerns that rosiglitazone might actually increase the risk of heart attacks. This controversy led to a major, I guess you could say, rethink in how we evaluate the safety of these diabetes drugs, particularly their impact on the heart.
So it's like a wake-up call that prompted a greater focus on cardiovascular safety.
Exactly. Now, regulatory agencies like the FDA and the EMA require new diabetes drugs to undergo these rigorous CVOTs to demonstrate that they don't pose any undue risks to the heart. These trials involve thousands of patients and track cardiovascular events, like heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular death.
It's like an extra layer of scrutiny to ensure that these new diabetes drugs don't just lower blood sugar, but they actually protect the heart, which is crucial for people with diabetes who are already at an increased risk for heart problems. Now let's switch gears to biosimilar insulins. These are essentially generic versions of brand name insulins. Why are these biosimilars so important in the context of diabetes care?
Biosimilar insulins offer a more affordable alternative to brand name insulins, which can be incredibly expensive. They undergo a rigorous approval process to make sure they are comparable to the original insulin in terms of their safety, purity, and potency. This means that patients can access, life-saving insulin at a lower cost without compromising quality.
It's like democratizing access to essential medications. Biosimilars have the potential to significantly reduce costs for both healthcare systems and patients, making insulin therapy more accessible to those who need it most. Now, let's dive into a topic that sounds a bit intimidating. Pharmacovigilance. It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It does have a bit of a mysterious air to it, but it's a crucial aspect of drug safety. So pharmacovigilance is essentially the process of monitoring the safety of drugs after they've been approved and are being used by the general public.
So it's like having a watchdog that keeps an eye on these drugs even after they're out in the wild.
Yeah.
But why is this necessary? Didn't clinical trials already establish the safety of these drugs?
Well, clinical trials are very important, but they do have limitations. They often involve a limited number of people and are conducted under very controlled conditions. Pharmacovigilance helps us to identify any rare side effects that might not have been detected during those clinical trials. It's really about gathering real-world data on how drugs are being used and, identifying any potential safety signals that emerge.
So it's like a continuous safety check to make sure that these drugs are actually living up to their promises. Now let's move on to a topic that's close to everyone's heart and wallet: pharmaco-economics.
This field focuses on assessing the value of a drug, considering both its clinical benefits and its cost. It's about asking some tough questions like, is this drug worth its price tag? Does it provide enough benefit to justify, the cost?
Those are definitely questions we all grapple with, especially in healthcare.
Exactly. And a key tool in pharmacoeconomics is the ICER calculation, which stands for incremental cost-effectiveness ratio. So the ICER compares the cost of a new drug with the cost of existing treatments, taking into account the additional, health benefits that it provides.
So it's like a cost-benefit analysis for drugs.
Precisely. Organizations like NICE in the UK and similar bodies, in other countries, they use these ICER calculations to determine if a new drug is cost-effective and, should be funded by the healthcare system. It's about making those informed decisions and allocating resources wisely.
This is all incredibly fascinating. Before we dive deeper into specific diabetes drugs, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button on our Facebook and YouTube channels. You won't want to miss the rest of this deep dive. Now, are you ready to explore the world of metformin, one of the most widely prescribed diabetes drugs?
Let's do it. So metformin actually has a really long and intriguing history. It dates back centuries. Chapter 2 takes us back to the French lilac plant, Galega officinalis. It's been used in folk medicine for ages.
It's amazing to think that a plant used in traditional medicine has become such a cornerstone of modern diabetes treatment.
It really speaks to the power of observation and how traditional knowledge can sometimes lead to these groundbreaking scientific discoveries. But metformin's journey wasn't, without its bumps. early versions of the drug, which belong to the biguanide class, had some concerns about a serious side effect called lactic acidosis.
So there's a bit of a learning curve in harnessing metformin's potential.
There was, but over time, researchers developed a much safer and more effective formulation of metformin. The one that we use today, it's become, the first-line treatment for type 2 diabetes for a reason.
Okay, let's break down how metformin actually works its magic in the body.
So metformin is kind of a master multitasker. It actually targets several different pathways involved in glucose regulation. One of its primary actions is to reduce glucose production in the liver. It also improves insulin sensitivity in skeletal muscle, so helping your muscles to use glucose more effectively. And it even has effects in the intestines, slowing down the absorption of glucose from food.
Wow, it's like metformin is hitting all the right notes in the blood sugar symphony. Now, how is metformin absorbed and eliminated from the body? Are there any special considerations?
Yeah, so metformin is taken orally, it's absorbed in the gut, and excreted primarily by the kidneys. This is important to note because dosage adjustments might be needed for people with kidney problems, to prevent any potential side effects. It's about finding the right balance between effectiveness and safety.
So it's like a tailored prescription based on kidney function.
Yeah.
Now, for the million-dollar question, how effective is metformin at lowering blood sugar?
Metformin has consistently shown to be effective at lowering HbA1c, which is a measure of long-term blood sugar control. Studies comparing it to other drug classes show that it holds its own, remarkably well, often achieving, similar or even better results. And here's where it gets really exciting. The UK-PDS, which was a landmark trial, it showed that intensive blood sugar control with metformin actually reduced the risk of diabetes-related complications.
So it's not just about managing blood sugar in the moment, it's about preventing those long-term consequences that could really impact people's lives.
Exactly. The UK-PDS provided strong evidence that metformin doesn't just manage numbers. It helps to protect against, eye, kidney, and nerve damage, the kinds of things that can significantly reduce quality of life.
That's incredibly powerful. And speaking of powerful findings, the UK-PDS also hinted at metformin's potential role in preventing type 2 diabetes in the first place.
This is where the research gets really, really intriguing. So the UK-PDS included a group of people with impaired glucose tolerance, which is a pre-diabetic state, and they found that metformin significantly reduced their risk of developing full-blown type 2 diabetes. So it opens up a whole new avenue for using metformin, not just as a treatment, but potentially as a preventative measure for those at high risk.
That's incredible. Imagine the impact of preventing diabetes before it even starts. Talk about changing the game.
It's a paradigm shift. And there's even more good news. So a sub-study of the UK-PDS that focused specifically on cardiovascular outcomes found that metformin also reduced the risk of heart attacks and strokes in people with diabetes.
So metformin is good for blood sugar control, A&D heart health. It's like a 2-for-1 deal.
It is. These findings have been further supported by other studies, like the HOME trial, which showed that metformin actually reduced cardiovascular events and deaths in people with impaired glucose tolerance. So it's really solidified metformin's reputation as a heart-healthy choice.
Now let's address a question that's on a lot of minds. Does metformin have a place in the treatment of type 1 diabetes?
That's a hot topic. Traditionally metformin has been used for type 2 diabetes, but there's a growing interest in exploring, its potential benefits for people with type 1. So some studies have suggested that it might actually improve blood sugar control and reduce insulin requirements in this population.
So it's like breaking down traditional boundaries and seeing where metformin's magic can reach.
Exactly. More research is definitely needed to fully understand metformin's role in type 1 diabetes, but it's an exciting area of exploration.
Okay, that's a wrap on the amazing metformin. Before we move on to the next drug class, another quick reminder to subscribe to our channels and stay tuned for more diabetes deep dives. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube. Now let's turn our attention to another important class of diabetes drugs, sulfonylureas. These guys work by boosting insulin secretion from the pancreas.
Chapter 3 delves into the intricate details of how sulfonylureas work their magic. So it all starts with glucose entering the beta cells in your pancreas. As glucose levels rise, it triggers a whole series of events that ultimately lead to insulin release. So sulfonylureas come into play by binding to a specific receptor on the beta cell surface called the SUR1 receptor.
So they have a special key that unlocks insulin production.
Exactly. So this binding sets off, a chain reaction inside the beta cell, and this ultimately leads to increased insulin secretion.
It's like giving your pancreas a little nudge to produce more insulin. Now let's talk about the specific sulfonylureas that are available in the UK and EU.
So in the UK and EU, the most commonly prescribed sulfonylureas are gliclazide and glyburide. Glipizide and tolbutamide are also available, but they're not used as frequently. Each one has its own, unique characteristics in terms of how it's absorbed, metabolized, and how long it lasts in the body.
So it's like having different flavors of sulfonylureas, each with its own personality. And let's talk about how sulfonylureas make their way
Yeah.
through the body. It's pharmacokinetics time again.
So sulfonylureas are taken orally. They're easily absorbed from the gut. The key is to take them about 30 minutes before meals, so they're ready to work their magic, when you eat.
It's all about timing. It's like setting a timer for your medication to align with your meal schedule. Now, one of the big questions is how sulfonylureas kind of stack up against other diabetes drugs, especially some of these newer options like SGLT2 inhibitors, like a battle of the diabetes drugs.
Well, it's more about finding the best fit for each individual. The 8-OPT trial, for example, compared glibenclamide, which is a sulfonylurea, to metformin and rosiglitazone, which is a thiazolidinedione.
Okay, lots of drug names to keep track of. What did the 8-OPT trial kind of tell us?
The trial showed that all three drugs were effective at lowering blood sugar. However, glibenclamide was associated with more weight gain and hypoglycemia
Right.
compared to the other two drugs. So it highlights that choosing the right drug isn't just about effectiveness; it's about balancing the benefits and the potential downsides.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between effectiveness and side effects. The UK PDS, which we talked about earlier, also provided some valuable insights into sulfonylureas. Um, this trial compared intensive blood sugar control with sulfonylureas to conventional treatment. And they found that intensive treatment significantly reduced the risk of those long-term microvascular complications. So like, eye, kidney, and nerve damage.
Yeah, it really highlights the importance of aggressive blood sugar management in preventing those long-term complications. But the UPPDS also showed that sulfonylureas do come with risks, like hypoglycemia and weight gain, which further emphasizes the need for careful consideration and monitoring.
So it's a balancing act.
Yep.
As with so much in medicine, the 10-year follow-up of the UK PDS showed that the benefits of this intensive treatment with sulfonylureas actually persisted even after the trial had ended. That's pretty powerful.
It is. It really underscores the importance of early intervention and achieving that tight blood sugar control in those early stages of diabetes, to really reap those long-term benefits.
Now, for a question that's often on people's minds, do sulfonylureas offer any protection for the heart or kidneys?
Well, unfortunately, the evidence suggests that they don't provide that added cardiovascular or renal protection that we see with some of the newer drug classes.
So while they're effective at lowering blood sugar, they don't have those extra heart and kidney benefits that are, becoming increasingly important in diabetes care.
Exactly. It's a crucial consideration when making treatment decisions, particularly for people with diabetes who are at a higher risk for, heart and kidney problems.
Before we move on, another shout out to our amazing supporters on Facebook and YouTube. Your subscriptions make these deep dives possible. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to join the learning party. Now, are you ready to delve into the world of meglitinides? These drugs are close cousins of sulfonylureas, working in a very similar way to boost insulin production.
Think of meglitinides as the sulfonylurea family's younger siblings, sharing, some similar traits but with their own unique quirks. Like sulfonylureas, they stimulate insulin release by binding to that SUR1 receptor on beta cells.
So they're essentially playing the same tune as sulfonylureas, just with a slightly different instrument.
Yeah.
But what are those key differences?
Well, meglitinides have a much shorter duration of action compared to sulfonylureas. This makes them particularly well-suited for controlling, blood sugar spikes, specifically after meals.
So they're like the sprinters of the insulin-boosting world.
Exactly. They're quick on their feet and ready to tackle those post-meal glucose surges.
Now let's meet the stars of the meglitinide show.
Okay, we've got two main players, nataglinide and repaglinide. Nataglinide is known for its rapid onset and short half-life, so making it a good choice for managing those post-meal spikes. It's primarily metabolized in the liver. And it doesn't actually require any dose adjustments for those with kidney problems.
So it's a good option for people with kidney issues.
Exactly. And repaglinide also has rapid absorption and a dose-dependent insulin peak. It's also primarily metabolized in the liver, making it also suitable for people with kidney problems.
So both nataglinide and repaglinide offer a kidney-friendly option for managing blood sugar.
Yeah.
Now, what about side effects? What are the potential downsides of meglitinides?
Well, like sulfonylureas, meglitinides can cause hypoglycemia. It's important to be aware of the signs and symptoms of low blood sugar and to, have a plan for treating it quickly.
So always be prepared. And it's crucial to have, that open communication with your doctor about any side effects that you experience.
Now, what about cost? Are meglitinides expensive?
The cost of meglitinides can vary depending on, your location and your insurance coverage. However, they're generally considered more affordable than some of the newer diabetes drugs, so making them, accessible to a wider range of patients.
That's good to hear. Access to affordable medications is a major concern for so many people. Now, let's compare meglitinides to their close relatives, the sulfonylureas.
Okay, so both drug classes are effective at lowering blood sugar, but meglitinides have that shorter duration of action. So this means they're less likely to cause prolonged hypoglycemia. They're also a good option for people with kidney problems who might need those dose adjustments with sulfonylureas. So it really comes down to choosing, the right tool for the job. So it's about personalizing treatment based on individual needs and circumstances. And meglitinides offer a very targeted approach to managing those post-meal blood sugar spikes. This is incredibly informative. And before we move on, a quick reminder to subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube channels to stay in the loop for future deep dives. Now let's enter the world of DPP-4 inhibitors, or gliptins as they're often called. These drugs work by enhancing the action of incretins, those naturally occurring hormones that help regulate blood sugar.
Chapter 4 takes us into the fascinating world of incretins and how DPP-4 inhibitors work to boost their power. So remember, incretins are produced in the gut in response to food, and they play a key role in stimulating insulin release when you need it most.
So they're like the body's own blood sugar regulators. But what happens to these helpful incretins?
Well, unfortunately, they have a very short lifespan. An enzyme called dipeptidase 4, or DPP-4 for short, breaks them down quickly, so it prevents them from doing their job effectively.
So DPP-4 is like the villain in the incretin story.
That's a great way to put it, and that's exactly where DPP-4 inhibitors come in. They block the action of DPP-4, so allowing incretins to stay active, for longer and do their blood sugar regulating magic.
It's like they're the superheroes. Protecting incretins from that evil DPP-4 enzyme. Now let's meet the stars of the DPP-4 inhibitor show.
All right, so there are several key players in this class, each with their own unique characteristics and benefits. So we have vildagliptin, saxagliptin, sitagliptin, elagliptin, and linagliptin.
Wow. That's a lot of gliptins to keep track of. Can you give us a quick overview of how they work and their potential benefits?
Absolutely. All DPP-4 inhibitors share the same, basic mechanism of action. So they prevent the breakdown of those incretins. However, they do have, some subtle differences in their pharmacokinetic profiles and potential side effects.
So it's important to choose the right DPP-4 inhibitor for each individual based on their specific needs and characteristics.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about safety. DPP-4 inhibitors are generally well tolerated. But like all medications, they can have some side effects. Some people might experience mild gastrointestinal issues like nausea or diarrhea, but these usually subside over time.
Yeah, so nothing too alarming.
But what about the heart? Remember we talked about that rosiglitazone controversy earlier and how it prompted this greater focus on cardiovascular safety for new diabetes drugs.
That's a crucial point. Because of that controversy, all new diabetes drugs, including DPP-4 inhibitors, have to undergo those rigorous cardiovascular outcome trials or CVOTs, to prove their safety for the heart.
So they're put through the ringer to make sure that they don't increase the risk of heart problems.
Exactly. And the results of these CVOTs for DPP-4 inhibitors have been, mostly reassuring. For example, the SAVOR-TIMI 53 trial, which looked at saxagliptin. It found that saxagliptin didn't increase the risk of, major adverse cardiovascular events in people with type 2 diabetes and a history of heart problems. However, it did raise some concerns about a potential increased risk of hospitalization for heart failure.
So a bit of a mixed bag for saxagliptin.
Right, but it's important to note that subsequent trials looking at other DPP-4 inhibitors didn't actually confirm this increased heart failure risk. Trials like TICOS, Carmelina, and Carolina, they provided further evidence that DPP-4 inhibitors, when used appropriately, are generally safe for the heart.
Okay, so it's a story of initial concern followed by like a sigh of relief. Now let's talk about another important organ, the kidneys. Are DPP-4 inhibitors safe for people with kidney problems?
Yeah, that's a key consideration. Some DPP-4 inhibitors, like alogliptin, they require dose adjustments for those with kidney impairment. Linagliptin, on the other hand, is primarily eliminated through feces, actually, so making it a good option for people with kidney problems.
So linagliptin is like the kidney-friendly member of the DPP-4 inhibitor family. Now let's zoom out and look at the big picture. What's the overall place of DPP-4 inhibitors in the diabetes treatment landscape?
Well, they've earned a solid place in diabetes management. They're generally well tolerated, have a low risk of causing hypoglycemia, and they don't cause weight gain. They're convenient with once daily dosing, which can help people, stay on track with their treatment. However, they might have a more modest effect on blood sugar compared to some of the newer drugs like SGLT2 inhibitors and GLP1 receptor agonists, which we'll talk about later.
So it's all about weighing those pros and cons and finding the right fit for each individual.
Exactly. And DPP-4 inhibitors offer, a valuable option for many people with diabetes, helping them to achieve better blood sugar control with minimal side effects.
This is all incredibly informative. Before we move on to the next game-changing class of diabetes drugs, a friendly reminder to our amazing listeners, hit that subscribe button on our Facebook and YouTube channels to catch all our upcoming deep dives. Now, are you ready to explore the world of SGLT2 inhibitors? These drugs are making waves in diabetes treatment, and for good reason.
Chapter 5 takes us on a deep dive into the fascinating world of SGLT2 inhibitors. These drugs actually work in a completely different way compared to the other classes we've discussed so far.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do they work their magic?
Okay, so think of your kidneys as diligent filters. They're constantly reabsorbing glucose from your urine back into your bloodstream. It's like a recycling system for glucose. SGLT2 inhibitors come in and disrupt this recycling process. So they block a protein called sodium glucose cotransporter 2, or SGLT2 for short, which is responsible for this reabsorption.
So they're like gatekeepers, preventing glucose from sneaking back into the bloodstream.
Exactly. By blocking SGLT2, these drugs allow that excess glucose to be flushed out in your urine, so lowering blood sugar levels. It's a whole new way of thinking about blood sugar control.
This is brilliant. It's like opening the floodgates and letting that excess glucose escape.
Now let's introduce the key players in the SGLT2 inhibitor family.
Okay, roll out the red carpet for the SGLT2 stars.
First up, we have dapagliflozin. It was one of the first SGLT2 inhibitors to hit the market. It's known for its high selectivity for SGLT2 and its long half-life, which makes it convenient for once daily dosing.
So convenience is a key selling point for dapagliflozin.
It is. Next, we have canagliflozin. It's another highly effective SGLT2 inhibitor. It also boasts, high selectivity for SGLT2 and a convenient once daily dosing schedule. It's been extensively studied in clinical trials and has shown some really impressive results, not just in blood sugar control, but also in cardiovascular outcomes, which we'll dive into a little later.
Okay. Canagliflozin is already sounding like a high achiever.
It is. Now enter empagliflozin. So this one is known for its potent glucose-lowering effects and its remarkable ability to reduce the risk of heart failure in people with diabetes.
Wow, empagliflozin is already stealing the show.
It's a true game changer. And finally, we have ertugliflozin. So this is a relative newcomer to the SGLT2 inhibitor family. It shares the family's signature high selectivity for SGLT2 and the convenience of once daily dosing.
Mm.
Dapagliflozin has also shown some promising results in clinical trials, demonstrating both blood sugar lowering and cardiovascular benefits.
Okay, so we have a stellar lineup of SGLT2 inhibitors, each with their own strengths. Now let's talk about their impact on blood sugar. How much can they lower HbA1c levels?
Well, studies have shown that SGLT2 inhibitors can significantly reduce HbA1c levels, typically, by about 0.5% to 1%. But it's not a one-size-fits-all effect. The exact reduction depends on the specific drug, the dose, and the individual's baseline HbA1c level.
Oh, it's a personalized effect, just like with most medications.
Exactly. And one of the key advantages of SGLT2 inhibitors is that they don't actually cause hypoglycemia on their own.
That's huge. No more worrying about those blood sugar crashes.
Exactly. Now let's dive into the exciting world of outcome trials. So remember, these trials go beyond just looking at blood sugar levels. They actually evaluate the long-term impact of a drug on overall health.
Okay. Bring on the big guns of diabetes research.
All right, so the MTA-REG outcome trial, this is a landmark study that really put empagliflozin on the map. So this trial involved over 7,000 patients with type 2 diabetes and established cardiovascular disease. So these were people that were already at high risk for heart problems.
So the stakes were high for this trial.
They were, and the results were nothing short of remarkable. So empagliflozin significantly reduced the risk of cardiovascular death, heart attacks, and these strokes in this high-risk population. It also had a remarkable impact on reducing the risk of hospitalization for heart failure.
Wow, empagliflozin is a true heart hero.
It is, and the Canvas trial, which focused on canagliflozin, it also showed some impressive cardiovascular benefits. It involved over 10,000 patients with type 2 diabetes who either already had cardiovascular disease or had multiple risk factors for heart problems. And like EMA-CLAG outcome, Canvas showed that canagliflozin reduced the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events.
Okay, so we have two blockbuster trials confirming the heart protective effects of SGLT2 inhibitors. What about the DECLARE TIME 58 trial?
So DECLARE TIME 58, this one focused on dapagliflozin, and it involved over 17,000 patients with type 2 diabetes who either had established cardiovascular disease or multiple risk factors. So it confirmed those cardiovascular benefits of SGLT2 inhibitors, showing that dapagliflozin reduced the risk of hospitalization for heart failure and cardiovascular death.
So it's a trifecta of trials confirming the heart healthy benefits of SGLT2 inhibitors.
Exactly, and the VERTA-CV trial, which focused on ortegliflozin, it also showed positive results. So further solidifying the cardiovascular benefits of this drug class.
Okay, so SGLT2 inhibitors are clearly winning the heart health competition. But let's talk about the kidneys. Remember, these drugs work by increasing glucose excretion in the urine. So it's crucial to understand how they affect kidney function.
Yeah, that's an important question, and the Credence trial actually provided some compelling evidence that canagliflozin can actually protect the kidneys.
Okay, tell me more about Credence.
So this trial involved over 4,400 patients with type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease. It showed that canagliflozin significantly slowed the progression of kidney disease, reducing the risk of kidney failure and cardiovascular events.
So canagliflozin is like a superhero for both the heart and the kidneys.
It is, and the DAPA-CKD trial, which focused on dapagliflozin, this one also showed remarkable kidney protective effects. So it involved over 4,300 patients with chronic kidney disease, both with and without diabetes, and the results were groundbreaking. So dapagliflozin significantly reduced the risk of kidney failure, cardiovascular death, and hospitalization for heart failure in this very diverse group.
So it's breaking down barriers and offering hope for a wider range of people with kidney problems.
Exactly. These trials have really transformed our understanding of how we can treat and manage kidney disease.
Now, for a question that's sparking a lot of discussion in the medical community, can SGLT2 inhibitors be used for people who don't have diabetes?
That's the hot topic right now. The impressive results of trials like DAPA-CKD, which included those without diabetes, have really opened up a whole new world of possibilities for using SGLT2 inhibitors to treat heart failure and chronic kidney disease,
Hmm.
regardless of diabetes status. It's a paradigm shift in how we view these drugs.
We're moving beyond those traditional boundaries of diabetes treatment. Now, before we move on to the next fascinating drug class, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button on our Facebook and YouTube channels. You won't want to miss the rest of this deep dive. Now, are you ready to explore the world of GLP-1 receptor agonists? These drugs are like the rising stars of diabetes treatment.
Chapter 6 takes us on a journey into the world of GLP-1 receptor agonists. So they work by mimicking the action of a naturally occurring hormone called GLP-1.
Okay, so we're tapping into the body's own pharmacy again. Tell me more about this GLP-1 hormone.
GLP-1, which stands for glucagon-like peptide 1, it's produced in your gut when you eat. It has some important jobs when it comes to regulating blood sugar. It stimulates insulin release from the pancreas. It suppresses glucagon secretion. Remember, glucagon raises blood sugar, and it slows down how quickly your stomach empties. So it's like GLP-1 is this multi-talented hormone working hard to keep our blood sugar in check.
Exactly. But like many things in the body, there's a catch, right?
There is. Unfortunately, GLP-1 doesn't hang around for very long. It's quickly broken down by an enzyme we've encountered before, DPP4. So remember, that's the same enzyme that's targeted by DPP4 inhibitors.
So it's like poor GLP-1 is constantly under attack.
It is, and that's where GLP-1 receptor agonists step in to save the day. So these drugs are designed to resist that breakdown by DPP4, meaning they can stick around for longer and have a more powerful effect on blood sugar.
It's like they're giving GLP-1 a shield to protect it from that evil DPP4 enzyme. Okay, I'm ready to meet the stars of the GLP-1 receptor agonist show.
We've got a diverse cast of characters here, each with unique features and benefits. We have exenatide, liraglutide, dulaglutide, and semaglutide.
Whoa. That's a lot of glutides to keep track of. Can you give us a quick rundown of each one?
Absolutely. Exenatide was one of the first GLP-1 receptor agonists to hit the market, and it actually comes in two forms: a short-acting version called Byetta, which is injected twice a day, and a long-acting version called Bydureon, which is injected just once a week.
So there's an exenatide option for those who prefer frequent dosing, and another for those who want that once weekly approach. That's great for patient choice.
Exactly. Now let's talk about liraglutide, which is marketed as Victoza. It's injected once daily,
Yeah.
and has a strong track record in clinical trials, not just for lowering blood sugar, but also for helping people lose weight.
Weight loss is a huge plus for many people with type 2 diabetes.
It is, and liraglutide is actually approved for weight management, even in people who don't have diabetes.
So it's a double duty drug.
Exactly. Next up, we have dulaglutide, which is also known as Trulicity. So it's a long-acting GLP-1 receptor agonist. It's given once weekly. Clinical trials have shown that it can significantly lower blood sugar, and it has some impressive cardiovascular benefits, which we'll discuss later.
Okay. Dulaglutide is already sounding like a strong contender. What about semaglutide?
So semaglutide is really, really versatile and comes in several different formulations. Ozempic is a once weekly injection. Rybelsus is actually a once daily oral formulation.
An oral GLP-1 receptor agonist. That's a game changer.
It is. And then there's Wegovy, which is a higher dose formulation of semaglutide. It's specifically for weight management.
So semaglutide is like the Swiss Army knife of GLP-1 receptor agonists.
I like that analogy. It offers so many different options to meet, diverse needs and preferences.
Now let's talk about how these GLP-1 receptor agonists affect blood sugar control. How much can they lower HbA1c?
Well, studies have shown that they can significantly reduce HbA1c,
Hmm.
often, by 1% or even more. But remember, the exact reduction varies depending on the specific drug, the dose, and the individual's starting HbA1c level.
So it's a personalized effect, just like with other diabetes medications.
Exactly. And similar to SGLT2 inhibitors, GLP-1 receptor agonists, they have a low risk of causing hypoglycemia when used on their own.
That's a huge relief for many people who are tired of those blood sugar roller coaster rides.
Absolutely. And remember how we talked about the weight loss benefits of GLP-1 receptor agonists? Let's explore that a bit
Guys,
further.
let's dive in.
So these drugs actually work on several different levels to influence weight. So they slow down how quickly your stomach empties, so you feel full longer after meals. They also act directly on the brain to reduce appetite and increase feelings of fullness.
So it's like a double whammy against those pesky cravings.
Exactly. And when combined with lifestyle changes like diet and exercise, these effects can lead to, some substantial weight loss.
Now, what about long-term benefits beyond blood sugar and weight? Let's talk about outcome trials.
So the LEADER trial, which focused on liraglutide, this was a game changer in our understanding of GLP-1 receptor agonists. It involved over 9,300 patients with type 2 diabetes and high cardiovascular risk. So these were people that were already at an increased risk for heart problems.
So a population that could really benefit from some heart protection.
Exactly, and the results were really, really impressive. Liraglutide significantly reduced the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events, including heart attacks, strokes, and even death from cardiovascular causes.
But liraglutide joins the Heart Hero Club.
It does, and other trials have confirmed these heart protective effects. So SUSTAIN-6 focused on semaglutide and EXCEL on exenatide. Both showed significant cardiovascular benefits.
So we have multiple trials singing the praises of GLP-1 receptor agonists for heart health. Now let's shift our focus to the kidneys. Do GLP-1 receptor agonists offer any protection for these vital organs?
The AWARD-7 trial, which looked at dulaglutide,
Yeah.
and the SUSTAIN-7 trial, which focused on semaglutide, these have given us some encouraging evidence that GLP-1 receptor agonists can indeed benefit the kidneys.
Tell us more about these trials.
Okay, so both trials showed that these drugs slowed the progression of kidney disease in people with type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease.
Yeah, that's like adding another layer of protection for the kidneys, which is so important for people with diabetes.
Absolutely. These findings have sparked a lot of excitement in the medical community about the potential of GLP-1 receptor agonists to not only manage blood sugar, but also protect against kidney damage.
Okay, so we've got heart health and kidney health covered. Now let's address some of the concerns that have been raised about GLP-1 receptor agonists.
There have been, some concerns about potential risks like pancreatitis and thyroid cancer. However, extensive reviews by regulatory agencies like the FDA and the EMA haven't found any conclusive evidence to support a direct link between these drugs and those conditions.
So it's important to separate fact from fiction and rely on credible scientific evidence.
Exactly. And always talk to your doctor about any concerns that you might have. Now let's shift our focus back to liraglutide and its role in obesity treatment. So remember we mentioned that it's also approved for weight management in people who don't have diabetes.
Yes, let's dig into that a bit more.
So the SCALE trial, this provided some compelling evidence for liraglutide's effectiveness in weight loss. It involved over 3,700 people with obesity, both with and without diabetes. The trial showed that liraglutide, when used at a higher dose than for diabetes, led to significant and lasting weight loss. It also improved various cardiovascular risk factors.
So liraglutide is proving to be a a multi-talented drug tackling both blood sugar and weight.
It is, and NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, has actually recommended liraglutide for treating obesity in the UK under certain conditions.
So it's officially recognized as a weight management tool. That's a big deal.
It is. It adds, another valuable option to the treatments that are available for people struggling with obesity.
Before we move on, another quick reminder to our amazing listeners. Subscribe to our channels on Facebook and YouTube to catch all our future deep dives. We've got so much more to explore. Now let's talk about a condition that's becoming increasingly prevalent and concerning: non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD.
So NAFLD is a condition where fat builds up in the liver, and this leads to inflammation and potential liver damage. It's often associated with obesity and insulin resistance.
So it's like a silent epidemic that often flies under the radar.
It is, and there's growing interest in exploring whether GLP-1 receptor agonists might have a role to play in treating NAFLD.
Okay, tell us more about this exciting area of research.
Early research suggests that GLP-1 receptor agonists they show some promise in improving liver function and reducing liver fat in people with NAFLD. It's thought that they might work by reducing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, and promoting weight loss. All of which, can benefit the liver.
So it's like a triple attack on NAFLD.
Exactly. More research is definitely needed to fully understand how best to use GLP-1 receptor agonists in treating NAFLD. But it's a promising avenue of exploration.
Now let's shift gears and talk about a true cornerstone of diabetes treatment: insulin. It's been a lifesaver for over a century.
Chapter 7 takes us on a fascinating journey through the history of insulin, from its humble beginnings to its modern marvels.
Give us the highlights.
Okay, so the discovery of insulin back in the early 20th century was a revolutionary moment in medicine. It transformed diabetes from a death sentence to a manageable condition.
It's hard to imagine a world without insulin.
It is. Early forms of insulin, they were derived from animal sources. But the development of biosynthetic human insulin in the late 20th century, this was a major breakthrough.
So we went from animal insulin to human insulin. What a leap forward.
It was, and landmark studies like the UKPDS, have shown that tight blood sugar control with insulin can significantly reduce those long-term diabetes complications.
So insulin isn't just about survival; it's about thriving with diabetes.
Exactly. But as we've learned more about diabetes and insulin, we've realized that traditional insulins, while life-saving, they did have, some limitations. They couldn't fully mimic the complex and precise way that the body naturally releases insulin.
So it's like trying to recreate a symphony with just a few notes.
That's a great analogy. We needed insulins that could better match the body's natural rhythms, and that's where insulin analogs came in.
Okay, I'm ready to learn about insulin analogs.
Okay, but first let's quickly review how insulin actually works at the cellular level.
Back to the basics. Love it.
Okay, so insulin acts like a key that unlocks the doors of our cells, so allowing glucose to enter and be used for energy. So when insulin binds to its receptor on the cell surface, it sets off a chain reaction inside the cell. This leads to glucose uptake and the storage of excess glucose as glycogen.
So insulin's like the traffic cop, directing glucose where it needs to go.
Exactly, and this is how insulin keeps those blood sugar levels in check.
Now back to those insulin analogs where we're talking about. What makes them different from traditional insulin?
So insulin analogs are modified versions of human insulin. So they've been, tweaked to have specific characteristics like faster or slower absorption rates.
So it's like having a toolbox of insulins, each one designed for a specific purpose.
Exactly. This gives healthcare providers and people with diabetes, more flexibility and precision in tailoring insulin regimens to meet individual needs.
I'm I'm starting to see how this opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
It does. Now let's talk about the different types of insulin that are available. So we have short-acting insulins, also known as rapid-acting analogs. These are designed to be taken right before meals to control those blood sugar spikes that happen when we eat.
So they're the first responders of blood sugar control.
Exactly. Then we have long-acting insulins, sometimes called basal analogs. So these provide a steady background level of insulin throughout the day, mimicking the body's natural basal insulin secretion.
So they're like the foundation of insulin therapy.
Exactly. And we also have intermediate-acting insulins, which fall somewhere in between the short-acting and long-acting insulins in terms of how long they last in the body.
So we have like a whole spectrum of insulin options.
We do. And choosing the right insulin for each individual, it really depends on their needs, their preferences, and their lifestyle. Now let's delve into the world of short-acting insulin analogs.
Okay, I'm ready to meet the mealtime blood sugar busters.
All right, Chapter 8 introduces us to the key players in the short-acting insulin analog world. First up, we have insulin Lispro. So it was one of the first rapid-acting analogs to come on the scene. It's known for its quick onset of action and shorter duration compared to regular human insulin.
So it's the Speedy Gonzales of insulin analog.
Exactly. So insulin Lispro is absorbed rapidly from the injection site, and it starts working within minutes, making it a great choice for controlling those blood sugar spikes right after meals.
That's impressive. It's like having a blood sugar superhero on speed dial. Now, what about insulin aspart?
So insulin aspart is another rapid-acting analog. It's known for being even faster than insulin Lispro. So it's also quickly absorbed and starts working within minutes, making it an excellent option for mealtime coverage.
So we've got two rapid-acting options, both designed for quick blood sugar control. What about insulin gluazine?
So insulin gluazine is another member of the rapid-acting analog family. It's very similar to Lispro and aspart in how quickly it works and how long it lasts in the body. It offers another great choice for mealtime coverage.
So it's like having a trio of fast-acting insulin options, each with their own subtle differences. Now, what about biosimilar short-acting insulin analogs? Remember we talked about biosimilars earlier in the context of insulin?
Yeah, so biosimilar insulin analogs are essentially more affordable versions of the original brand name analogs. So they've undergone rigorous testing to ensure that they're just as safe, pure, and effective as their brand name counterparts.
So it's like having a budget-friendly option without compromising quality. What are some examples of biosimilar short-acting insulin analogs?
So there are a few options available, including Admelog and Terapi, and this list is likely to grow in the future.
That's good news for people with diabetes. More options often mean better access and affordability. Now, for a question I hear a lot, what's the difference between insulin aspart and faster aspart?
So faster aspart, which is also known as Fiasp, is a newer formulation of insulin aspart. It's been designed to absorb even more quickly from the injection site.
So it's like insulin aspart on steroids.
That's a good way to put it. So faster aspart has an even quicker onset of action compared to regular insulin aspart. So giving even faster blood sugar control after meals. It's a great option for people who really need to keep those post meal spikes in check.
Okay, so it's like the ultimate weapon against those post-meal blood sugar surges. Now, before we move on to the world of long-acting insulin analogs, a quick reminder to our loyal listeners: subscribe to our channels on Facebook and YouTube. You won't want to miss the rest of this deep dive. Now let's explore the world of long-acting insulin analogs. These are the ones that provide that steady background level of insulin throughout the day.
Chapter 9 takes us on a tour of the long-acting insulin analog landscape. We'll meet the stars of the basal insulin show.
Okay, I'm ready to learn about the long-acting stars.
First up, we have insulin glargine. It's a a true pioneer in this field. It's known for its smooth peakless profile, so it provides a steady level of insulin, over a 24-hour period.
So it's like a gentle, continuous drip of insulin.
Exactly, and it's designed to really mimic how your body naturally releases basal insulin.
It's like having a built-in insulin pump that's always delivering a steady dose. That's brilliant. What does the research say about insulin glargine?
It has a long track record in clinical trials. So the Origin trial involved over 12,500 people with type 2 diabetes at high risk for heart problems. Showed that insulin glargine was not only effective at managing blood sugar, but also was safe for the heart.
So it's heart healthy too.
Exactly. Now let's introduce another star player, insulin detamir.
Okay, tell us about insulin detamir.
So insulin detamir is another long-acting insulin analog. So it has a unique way of binding to albumin, which is a protein in your blood. So this binding actually helps to extend its duration of action, giving it a smoother, more predictable profile.
So it's like insulin detamir has a little helper that keeps it working longer.
That's a great way to think about it. And this longer action means there's less risk of hypoglycemia both during the day and at night.
So insulin detamir is the master of blood sugar stability.
I like it. And it's proven effective in both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Now, let's meet the newest member of the long-acting insulin analog family, insulin degludec.
Okay, what makes insulin degludec stand out?
So insulin degludec is an ultra-long-acting insulin analog. So it has an incredibly long duration of action.
How long are we talking?
It can actually provide a steady insulin coverage for up to 42 hours.
Oh, that's like having a long-lasting insulin battery.
Exactly. So this extended duration of action has several advantages. It allows for more flexible dosing, potentially, with once daily or even once weekly injections. It also gives, a more stable and predictable insulin profile, further reducing the risk of those dreaded lows.
So insulin degludec is the king of convenience and stability when it comes to insulin. What does the research say about this ultra long acting insulin?
So the DEVO trial was a game changer. It involved over 7,600 people with type 1 diabetes. The trial showed that insulin degludec was just as good as insulin glargine at controlling blood sugar, but it had a significantly lower risk of severe hypoglycemia.
That's a win-win.
It is. So insulin degludec is proving to be, both safe and effective, and its ultra long duration of action is a game changer, offering greater flexibility and peace of mind.
Okay, now let's talk about insulin combinations. What are those?
So insulin combinations or pre-mixed insulins, they're basically a blend of a long-acting insulin analog with a rapid-acting insulin analog, all in one injection.
So it's like a 2-in-1 insulin solution.
Exactly. They offer, a lot of convenience and can really simplify insulin regimens, especially for people who need those multiple daily injections.
It's about streamlining insulin therapy.
Yeah.
But can you mix and match any insulin analogs?
Not all long-acting insulin analogs are good candidates for mixing. Yeah. For example, insulin glargine and insulin detamir, they have properties that make them unsuitable for premixing.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Are there any long-acting analogs that can be mixed?
Yes. Insulin degludec, it actually can be mixed with those short-acting insulin analogs.
Insulin degludec is proving to be quite the versatile player.
It is. Rhizodeg, which is a combination of insulin degludec and insulin aspart. This is one example of a premixed insulin that's available.
Okay, let's talk about how the different long-acting insulin analogs compare to each other. Is there a clear winner?
Researchers have conducted meta-analyses, which essentially combine, data from multiple studies to help us to really understand the nuances of different long-acting insulin analogs.
And what have they found?
So these meta-analyses have shown that all of the long-acting insulin analogs, they do a good job of controlling blood sugar, but they have different side effect profiles and different risks of hypoglycemia.
So it's all about finding the perfect match for each each individual.
Exactly. For instance, insulin datamir has been shown to have a lower risk of nighttime hypoglycemia, compared to insulin glargine and insulin dagligen. This consistently shows a lower risk of overall hypoglycemia compared to other long-acting insulin analogs.
So choosing the right insulin is really about understanding your blood sugar personality.
I love that way of putting it, and it underscores the importance of talking to your doctor about your needs and your preferences, so they can help you find the long-acting insulin that's right for you.
This is so incredibly insightful. And before we move on to the fascinating world of diabetes devices, a friendly reminder to our amazing listeners: hit that subscribe button on our Facebook and YouTube channels. You won't want to miss out on our upcoming deep dives into